and we'll call the meeting to order at 9:40 a.m. Then we have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd like to join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. And then we have our first public comment portion of the meeting. Yes, Mr. Brooks.
Surprised Patrick's not here. It was from Patrick that I learned about this meeting. And that was last night, so I'm unprepared. I'm also sick as a dog, so give me a little slack. I'm David Brooks. I live at 2627 Hayes Road. I've lived in Sylvan Township for over 40 years. I was in this room when the debacle all started. I watched Rene Papo and his buddy with a cane conspire with Jerry Dresselhaus to become real estate mogul. I challenged the lawyer. What happens if this happens? Not a problem. The special assessment district got us protected top to bottom. Well, he was wrong. I was right. I was glad we sued him. But we only got a couple $1 million out of them, and we owed $12 million. So me and my neighbors got intimidated into passing a millage, 4 point something or other, that we've been paying on for close to 20 years for a water and sewer system that'll never get within 2 miles of my house. I ran for office in 2000, 2004, learned I'm a lousy politician, didn't like it. Dropped out of township activities for like 15 years. And then Patrick talked me into running for supervisor in 2000, and I won. That was kind of cool. So I had a job as township supervisor, and I met consent agreements. I forget how many of them, and I've got one question. When were they signed? What date were they signed?
Well, we have like 7 of them. And so all various 2011, 2007, I think around that time.
Okay, so let's average it out to 2010. I read those consent agreements over and over. I charted them, I diagrammed them. I saw the clauses that allow you to modify them, go back to the judge. If you compare all those consent agreements, 80% of them are identical, paragraph to paragraph. It's just boilerplate. You get to the last few paragraphs, and it might say the township has got to provide taps or connect or something. I've forgotten all that. My 3 minutes up already? Yeah. I don't know what that was. But I was in this room when it started. And when I became supervisor, I picked up these consent judgments and looked at them. We have an obligation to comply with those consent judgments. But they were made in 2010. So that's what we're required to provide. I don't think there's anything in those consent judgments that we provide money to anybody. We provide facilities and services, like taps or connections or something. And we should provide them the way we could have provided them in 2010. If codes have changed, that's not our responsibility to bring Norfolk system up to code. We need to bring it up to 2010 consent judgment. If the layout has changed and the piping no longer works, not our problem. We need to comply with the 2010 consent agreement. If the GPM that a house requires has gone up over those 12 years, not our problem to comply with it. We comply with the 2010 consent judgment. And there's all we have to provide is facilities and service. Yeah, I had a line, I forget where it fits in, but I'm tired of the township throwing my money around like candy at a Labor Day parade. The citizen, I would prefer to have 800 citizens behind it saying, we're fed up. You ain't getting another dime out of us. I got 30 seconds left. Change subject completely. Sylvan Township does not fluoridate their water. I hope I can find a family that has $10,000 worth of dental bill and talk them into suing you. Fluoridation is one of the major public health success stories of the 20th century, and we're still in the dark ages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Renee.
Hi, Renee Thompson. I'm a Sylvan Township resident for over 30 years. Just a couple of comments that I made at the last meeting. First, I was shocked going through the packet for the last meeting that we had what appeared to be legal documents regarding this amendment. Wondering how we got to that point, like what did I miss? We have things drawn up by attorneys already. To me, that just the optics weren't good. And then when I got to the meeting and there were board members questioning that also, it really made me wonder how it looks like some kind of, you know, backdoor deal things going on. If attorneys are already working on this amendment where the township is going to have to pay for this, it just didn't look good. And secondly, I would agree completely with Mr. Brooks. It's, you know, judgment was made over a decade ago. I guess it's fine if the developer wants to change things up and add units. The city of Chelsea seems to be okay with that. But it's not on us to pay for their upgrades so that they can make more money. You know, and if the city of Chelsea wants those units there so badly, maybe they pony up the money, but Sylvan Township, it's not up to us. They just continue to, you know, they were to acquire more land adjacent to Westchester, like north of it or something, and then decided they like 300 more units. Are they going to come back? Like we just keep shoveling out the dough. It just does not smell good at all. And again, I agree with Mr. Brooks. I'm tired of my money being thrown around for things that make no sense. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. All right, so the first item of business, unfinished business here is the reason we're all here today. Westchester Farm First Amendment to consent judgment. And I just want to say real quickly that this document that everyone is seeing is really the first that has presented to us. And as our attorney said last time we were here, this is sort of a negotiation. So this is a starting point. This is not something we need to agree to. This was presented to us and our attorney brought it forward And now we're coming together and we're talking about these things. So I want people to understand that what was presented was not my doing, my talking with someone. This is, and our attorneys have been working on this for a very long time. I believe back when Mr. since 2020, even, 2020, when Mr. Kosick was supervisor, I think there's been these discussions with Westchester about their changes, about the water system. So this is not new. It may feel like it's the first time you're hearing this, but there's been rumblings of these changes and addressing these things and having water studies done for at least over a year now, possibly 2 or 3. So I want people to understand that nobody up here at this table that I know of is interested in giving your money away, kowtowing to someone that we shouldn't. But this is where we are, and if there has to be a negotiation about this, and I think this is our starting point. And I appreciate everyone's interest, and I appreciate the board coming together and Westchester representatives so we can talk about this today and really hammer it out. Like I said, it's been rumbling for years. And this is the point where we need to move on it, hammer down these details and go forward. So thank you everyone for being here today. Our attorney, Mr. Thal, is here. Ted Erickson, the attorney, our water engineer who did the report, is on the call today as well. So we can have a good discussion.
Can I kind of, when you're done there, kind of have the floor a little bit, just to kind of maybe lay some things out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, I will be done. I just wanted to put that out there to maybe, allay some worries that residents had. But that's all I have to say right now. So Sean LaFear from Westchester.
Thank you guys again for the time here. And I guess what I'd like to kind of lay out, I'm hearing a lot of throwing money, the township paying us money and so forth. But there's 3 things that really kind of need to be discussed through this amendment to the consent judgment. The first one, and I'll go through them a little bit more, and I'd almost like to go through in the order of this. The first one is the modification of the site plan. The original site plan that was part of the consent judgment had 300, I think you guys have this plan here. But if I can This was the original consent plan, it's in the consent judgment, 333 units. Approximately, oh gosh. 2 years ago, seems like it's been longer than that. About 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we started looking at market conditions. What our sales absorption rate was, what is needed for Washtenaw County, or Western Washtenaw County from a housing standpoint, and really came to the conclusion that rather than build 330 single family units, let's diversify the product. Let's bring some different products. Let's bring some lower price point product to the table to fit some housing needs, some workforce housing, some, can't say the word affordable housing anymore, attainable housing, so I don't think anything's affordable anymore, but so we started looking at, okay, how can we take this original site plan that had 330 homes on it and what can we do to make that a little more, bring in some different product to the town? And probably 5-6 years ago, there was a study that was done between Chelsea, Dexter, and Celine. It was a area study on what type of housing is needed. We spent a lot of time looking at that study, going through. So we came up with a new plan. Again, this is just the 333 units. And came up with a new plan that pretty much added cottage style units, ranch style duplexes, and a kind of a 2-story duplex. And I have I'll see a little bit more around people here, so we'll go to make plans for everybody. So with that, look at This would be the two-story duplex that we're talking about. Yep. So this would be those would be the duplexes that are, and when you look at the phasing, we have them labeled as A, B, C, D. And again, that is purely just a kind of, the Ds are those duplexes. Then we have some cottage style homes that, and these would be kind of slab on grade, 1,200 square foot. First floor masters with a second story upstairs, again, kind of looking at an empty nester. Type product that, again, trying to hit some price points and some housing. So that would be the cottage styles. Then we have ranch style duplexes that we built quite a bit around Washington County. And these are 1,450-ish square feet duplex units that have a garage. You can finish the basement. Again, this is, they're 2-bedroom upstairs. They tend themselves to an empty nester, maybe a family just starting out, but they're geared towards that. So the thought is we'll continue to have single family homes on the west side of the property. Then we'll transition into the ranch or the little cottages, then transition into the ranch style duplexes, and then down to the 2-story duplexes. So that when we started the whole process, that is what so out of the modification of the site plan, part of the consent judgment, this is what we're talking about here. Throughout the consent, and we'll get into the engineering studies there, the consent judgment is written that this is the part that we work off of. Seeing some of the engineering reports on the actual depth of the sewer, depth of the water, we may have got the cart ahead of the horse a little bit from the standpoint of our engineers are working on the detailed engineering of the stuff that is done administratively, which was done for the first phase, the second phase. We've always done it that way. So Kurt, some of the reports you're seeing now are that detailed engineering reports that are done administratively. This part of the site plan was done. We took the risk to do that work there because we've been working in good faith with the engineers of townships, the city of Chelsea on a plan to make sure stormwater system worked, made sure the traffic, we did a traffic study to make sure everything worked on the traffic study. We added 31 units. So the original 330, we added 31 units on it. That is the part of the consent judgment that we are talking about on the modification section of it. So that is, again, the first part. The second issue to talk about in the consent section is the addition of utilities service to the city of Chelsea, or Sylvan Township services to the city of Chelsea. We looked at the overall site, the condos that are in Chelsea. For this drawing here is again the proposed amended site plan with the addition of the condos to the city of Chelsea. So you can see how the whole project all kind of fits together harmoniously. The roads, the landscaping, everything ties together. By adding the services, sewer and water, to the city of Chelsea, that adds 96 users onto, the sewer obviously goes to Leone, but the water, the township's been in dire need of users on its water system. Well, anybody can deny that. this year adds 96 new users to the system that will start having water run through the system, that will start paying user fees there versus using the city of Chelsea's water. Utilities from the city of Chelsea were difficult to serve this small little piece of property. This is kind of an outlying 16 acres of the city. And the city looked at it and said, you know, yeah, we concur that it's much easier to use Sylvan's utilities that are literally right at the property line and tie everything together. We felt it was a win-win for everybody. Sylvan needs the users, it's the services. Chelsea felt that, hey, if we extend it there, there's no other property around there that you'll continue to serve into Chelsea's property. It's like I said, it's the last little 16 acres that is there. So that's the second part of the consent judgment that we're talking about. And then the third part that we're here to talk about, which is probably the biggest controversial one. So again, the first two were, you know, somewhat, you know, here's what we're gonna do. And we could have just stopped at that. We could have went and done this, amended the consent judgment with just those there. But the water issue actually came up in 2017. 5 years before we even started to look at adding, before we even started to do this, we got the first report from, what was the first report? It wasn't IMD, it was, the first report that we got in 2017 from Infrastructure Alternatives started saying that, hey, the township has a problem with the water pressure. So this was way, way before we even dreamed about changing the plans and doing anything. We knew there was an issue back in 2017 when the township came and said, we have issues with the pressure. We had talked, and that's why I'm saying this isn't new to anybody. This has been talked about for 5-6 years. There's pressure issues with the township system. It was a very, very poorly designed system. It's on a 5-mile dead-end line. So we looked at, hey, should we just try to tie everything together? Let's, you know, we've been working in good faith, been working with the township. You have an issue. We're looking to redesign ours. Let's just tackle this all at one time. We could have easily just came in again and did the first two issues and been fine. And never even talked about the water. And then came back later and said, hey, township, you have an issue with your water pressure system. Or we could have done this 5 years ago before we did that. So what I want to make sure things aren't being confused is the new layout that is nothing to do with this water pressure issue. This water pressure issue was identified way before we even dreamed of this new layout. So working through with the engineers, it was always, well, we may need to have a booster station on this. There was modeling that was done. We identified a piece of property that was out front that was easy accessible to the township where they could build a booster station. We were going to donate the land to them. And then it was like, okay, well, here it is. We can tie right onto the main trunk line that comes in. And the township said, you know, hey, that's great. We don't have the money to do that. So, well, you know, either do we. So there's a compromise that we came up with again. So the money wasn't going out. Was let's trade for we're bringing on 127 new taps that were not included in the original 330. So that was kind of newfound tap money that was coming in. So the original was the booster station was, well, if we install and build the booster station, we'll offset it with those new 127 taps that we need. Because again, we own 330 taps that came with special assessment and everything. So the thought was, well, we'll swap tap fees and we'll put that in. There's no money coming out of the township. The township isn't writing a check. That's just swapping tap fees for that booster station. Then the engineers went back and did some more modeling and said, well, this booster station is all great, but the only time you need it is for fire flows. And what, maybe it would be better if we upsize a whole bunch of the pipe to try to accomplish that, rather than putting a booster station that may never run. So they did a lot of modeling, they upsized a whole bunch of the pipe to 12-inch pipe to try to accommodate the same thing. So the tap piece, so what we proposed was, that's fine. Our normal plan would have been an 8-inch pipe, we're gonna upsize all this to 12, so we don't have to do the booster station. Let's take those tap fees and pay the difference between the 8-inch and 12-inch. So again, there's no money coming out of the township, it's just swapping the additional tap fees that we were, that we're bringing to them. So again, the 330 taps, if we sit here today, those 127 taps would have never came forward. We built the project and done, but we're bringing 127 with the 96 of the city. Good, so it's kind of, the city's partial is paying for this problem here. And then we go back and look at the original design where this whole thing started with, you know, the original design to this and the original special assessment district, I, you know, had 600 and you know, 625 taps were originally assessed to this parcel. You know, we're at 457. So back when in 2000, when they originally put this water special assessment district, there were 625 taps that they were planning on putting on this property. I mean, we're having issues at 330 units. And God knows what they would have had if they had 627 or 625 taps there. So it was an issue from the very, very beginning. We looked at this, and actually we looked at your urban area district, and it obviously goes right along the side of, in your master plan, goes along the Chelsea border. So maybe the thought was they were supposed to loop this system to service all the urban area or not, but having two long dead-end lines is a very, very poorly designed system. So we, again, working with the township on this and saying, hey, what is a good compromise that we can do this where it's not any money out of your pocket? So it was trading some taps for upsizing the pipe to fix the problem. So again, there's three kind of different parts to what we're here for. Again, the first one is just a pure modification of the layout. Then all the engineering is done administratively as it's been done for the first two phases. You know, the second part is adding, or Sylvan Township allowing, I don't know how you want to call it, allowing or adding Chelsea to use Sylvan's sewer and water. And then the third is the upsizing of the water pipes in lieu of tap fees. So it's no money out of pocket to the township. That's kind of, again, the, you know, where I want to make sure we're separating those three different items.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dahl, do you have anything to add at this point or anything to?
No, I think it's really up for board discussion as it was before, you know. This is a time for the board to discuss it. I think those three things are the three items that need to be addressed. And I guess, you know, would like to hear from board members, and, you know, they can ask Sean questions too, if they need to. And also our water consultant, Ted Erickson's on the line too. So he can answer questions. And I did see what Kurt sent over last night. I thought that was enlightening in terms of the 2017 agreement or 2017 analysis by IAI. I think that there's a difference of opinion as to what that says between Westchester and the township.
Right.
Because what Kurt had highlighted out of there was the fact that it was identified in 2017 that there was a pressure issue. But it was a pressure issue within the community, within Westchester. That they were saying that they need to increase the size of their lines in their development to properly have pressure. Not that the system had a pressure issue. I don't know if Kurt wants to expand on that.
Yeah, I'll go through it. So because this is consent judgment property, there are no planning commission reviews for this. So this board has to make the decisions and give final site approval to move on to the next phase. If you look at, these Westchester drawings, it looks to me like there's 14 separate phases, not including the Chelsea property. That would be 15 phases. And the reason I say 14 phases is because, for example, if you look at phase 4, it's also listed as phase 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D. Then we get into phase 5, 5A. So I don't know if those are all separate phases. It seems like they are, but they're called out differently, or is phase 4, does that include all the A through D's in those phases? Anyway, so this board, when one of these phases comes up for approval, this board should be asking the following questions. Has the fire department reviewed this phase? And we have a letter from the fire department saying everything's good. Midwest Consulting, have they reviewed it? Did they say everything's good? We have Ted Erickson with IMEG. We have his review. I believe Carol looks at it from zoning reviews. And we talked about traffic studies. So this board, in order to make an informed decision, should have that documentation that says, yep, everything's good. You, board, can approve this phase, and they can move on with the next phase.
Sir, that's not the way the consent judgment is, though. This phase 1, phase 2, but that is all done administratively. It does not go in front of the board. Each phase does not go in front of the board.
Well, that's my question. Is it, are we doing this phase by phase?
No, this is replacing the 330 unit development. We are swapping out these, 10 phases. We are swapping this 10 phase plan.
Consent judgment plan.
That's what I'm saying. This year, really, this is the engineering side. You should be focusing just on the consent drawing. That's what you're voting.
Is to change this consent drawing.
This consent drawing to
what?
To this consent drawing. To this drawing. That's what you're voting. You're changing that other drawing to this one. That is what you're voting on. Each phase, you're absolutely right, it needs to be done, but it's done administratively. And that's what we go through, Sue, and that's what you're seeing.
All right, so you're saying there could be just one final review for this drawing itself, and that meets all the needs, instead of doing it by phase.
The by phases, you're absolutely right. You need to make sure engineering vote. That is all done administrative. Does not go in front of the planning commission, does not go in front of the board. That is done by, which are the reviews that you're seeing right now.
It has to come in front of the board for approval.
What has to come before the board, so under the consent agreement, modifications can be made administratively. But if there's any, what has to come, why it has to come before the board is because of the additional units. They can't add units without coming back to the board. So their additional 31 units requires them to come back to the board. Their adding of the Chelsea property has to be approved by the board under section 10. And then any issue regarding the water pressure and water supply to the property needs to be addressed by the board. But in terms of modifications, the only reason it's coming back to the board for the modifications part is because they're adding units. If it was just a redesign, as I read it, it would be administrative.
But that does.
Which doesn't mean the township's not approving, it's just not the board. It doesn't have to come to the board. It still has to go through engineering and zoning.
Okay, so it still has to go through engineering and zoning.
Yeah, it still has to be reviewed by the, yeah. I mean, it's just not, the township has to approve it, but it doesn't have to go to the board approval. What's triggering the board approval is the additional units.
Okay, so how many phases have been approved?
Currently, 2 phases have been approved. We have
Phase 1 and phase 2.
phase 1 and phase 2, and there's currently 50-ish houses out there. And those 2 were done all administratively. That was done, you know, we still have to go get your Part 41 permits. We still have to go through all that. It just does not go to the planning commission or the township board. But administratively, you know, we have, working with MCI, and Sue there, and we'll have sometimes 4 or 5 different go-arounds, which means, you know, hey, water main's gotta be 5 foot deep, those approvals there, the road commission still looks at all the, you know, we have to get those, they're just done all administratively, they don't go in front of, the board.
Okay, so the engineering reviews and, you know, this is what I thought we'd be talking about today is technical engineering. Because the legal issues, we really should be doing in closed session for Rock Fall. You know, we should not be discussing, you know, whether we agree with Sean or not on a consent judgment and, you know, how we interpret section 10, 15 and all that.
So you're saying for the additional units, you think that should be in a closed session?
Yeah.
Okay.
With Rob Fall, we should be talking about it. So from the engineering standpoint, the 2017 infrastructure alternative study, that's a study that the township, that company was working as an engineering representative for the township. And they never did say that the township, I've never seen it that says that the township has an issue with our 12-inch water main. I've never seen that. And the 2017 study doesn't say that. I've never seen that in writing any, that there's a problem with our 12-inch main. That 12-inch main is probably an engineering standard that says you run that thing down there, it should be capable of providing so many homes if the system's set up properly. You know,
Yeah,
the system's set up properly.
that's, you know, and I'm not, I'm an engineer, I'm not, but, you know, I guess we can ask Ted, you know, was the original system designed properly? Was the original, whatever, it was built in 2000?
Right, we don't.
Well, I mean, was that system, designed properly?
We drive the scope of work for our engineering representatives, so we're not gonna, you know, if we
Well, I mean, I
decide
guess
we
you-
want to look into that, we can do that. We're not gonna do that right now. So the infrastructure alternative study says, you know, that, hey, you guys have run 8-inch piping throughout this system and it doesn't meet the design standards. Now, I don't know who's doing your engineering. Is it Atwell? Are they doing the engineering studies on this? I mean, somebody's got to design the system, right?
Right.
So why wouldn't Atwell sit down with infrastructure alternatives back in 2017 and say, hey, we have a disagreement. Engineer A says this, engineer B says this, so let's get together, look at the assumptions, look at the modeling and come to some agreement. But that in 2017, I believe that didn't happen because I was always told, well, don't worry about it because this is not the final. There's more coming and there'll be another chance to do another engineering review down the road. So don't worry too much about what these drawings look like. Okay, that makes sense.
That's a fair statement. We knew there was an issue there in the design of the 2017 design that, you know, it says upsizing place, maybe has to add a pressurized system to it. There was different alternatives to that. So we knew there was an issue there.
Right.
Right, so, yes, and that's what I'm saying, we were gonna have this discussion at some point, whether we changed the plans or not, this discussion was happening. It just happens to be at the same time we're modifying something, so this discussion with the township was gonna happen whether we change this plan or not. And that's why I wanna make sure, that's why I wanna make sure we separate the two, because this discussion was gonna happen with the township on what it is with the pressure and do they need a booster station or not. That was gonna happen whether we go back to the old plan, never take the city's part, so on, or that discussion, you're absolutely right, was gonna come to a head
Yeah.
at some point.
And
You're
so-
100% right.
So now here we are in 2022.
Yep.
And you've changed the water system, you removed some. Dead ends compared to what 2017 sketch showed. I think there's at least 2 dead ends, maybe 3, you did loop 1 court there. So you made some changes. And then the township contracted for engineering through Ted Erickson with IMA. And unfortunately, none of the 8-inch piping on your system ever changed. You got rid of some dead ends and you created some loops, but you never increased anything to 12-inch. And that's exactly what Ted Erickson's model pointed out again, that hey, 8-inch is not gonna meet the requirements on the water system. So we can get Ted Erickson and Atwell to sit down and say, hey, what do you gotta do? I mean, Ted Erickson went through and modeled. He said, well, if you do 12 inches here and 12 inches there, I mean,
In lieu of a booster station.
he should not be designing your system.
In lieu of a booster station, you can do things that are not normal engineering standards. So in lieu of a booster station, you can do all this stuff rather than
You
doing.
read
booster
what he said
station.
about booster station.
Yeah, and I also
And
read what he
it's
said
not in the
about,
best interest of the township to do that.
yeah, and
We all
there's,
agree.
there's downfalls to putting all 12-inch water mains in there too.
Yeah, but that's your system.
It's your system.
That's not, no, our 12-inch line.
You're gonna own this
Yeah,
whole
your
system, you're gonna own this whole system at the end of the day. This is your system at the end of the day.
Developer rights are given up, then yes, that's.
Yeah,
true.
so you own
Right
phase,
now-
phase 1 and 2.
We will not approve the 8-inch water lines through that system.
But what I'm saying is, running 12 inches is gonna have possible problems as well. You're gonna have stagnant water in there.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the engineering study turns out on that.
That's
right
what,
now-
that was his fact.
Right now, our engineer is saying it doesn't work, our fire department has got issues with it, and you're coming up with creative solutions that don't address the root cause.
I believe the root cause, in my opinion, the root cause, it was a poorly designed system to begin with.
Your system was, yes.
Your system.
No, that's a standard 12-inch standard
On
water
a,
pipe.
on a 5-mile dead-end line? That is standard. You're saying that is the state of Michigan, that is their standard, to
Well,
put a 5-inch dead-end line.
Why don't we let Ted Erickson go through his most recent report and, I've got some questions for Ted on his report.
Hi, Ted.
Good morning.
Morning.
So we basically took the system as it was presented in the latest drawings and modeled it. I guess I want to clarify one thing with the IAI report is that the rules for pressure is the minimum pressure should be 20 PSI under any flow condition. The minimum working PSI is 35. So during a fire flow condition, you don't need to maintain 35, you need to maintain 20 PSI. So I guess I wanted to point that out. That was a little bit of a different way of putting it than I would have put it. So we modeled the system as the 8-inch and, chose a couple of fire hydrants that were most distant, where you have the biggest pressure drop. And we found that that the system would not provide 20 PSI throughout the whole development at that point in time. So upsizing the main loop to 12-inch would satisfy that requirement, barely. We feel that a upsized main, although the stagnant water is a concern that can be managed with flushing and stuff like that, is a better solution than a booster station that would only be needed on the rare occasion that a fire happens, and it would be an ongoing maintenance issue that the township that I think would certainly outweigh the stagnant water concerns. I guess it's a pretty simple analysis. I guess if there's questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I guess the other thing to highlight is that the normal working pressure was in the 65 to 70 PSI range. There is, during your peak hour flows, there is no normal pressure issues out there, just a fire flow concern.
Ted, I've got a couple of questions for you. On your letter, you've got, you wrote demand flows for the modeling of the system were based on reliability study completed by Infrastructure Alternatives in 2017. Is that the same document that we're?
There's two documents that I did during that time. One was reliability study, and then they did a which kind of talked about the whole system and gave you flows for the whole system. And the other was a update for just the Westchester pressures.
All right, the only infrastructure alternatives report I have says regarding Sylvan Township hydraulic modeling findings and recommendations. I don't see anything that says reliability study. You could share that, send me a copy of that.
Certainly.
Hey, Ted, is that the board? Is that this study that was done like 2006 now? Is that the one that was done 2016? It says June.
I guess I'm not. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it was done 2016.
It's that study.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is on your website. Print this off.
I just do electronic copy, you can find it. I mean,
I think I printed it off your website.
Ted, and then looking at your hydraulic model results, demand scenario 2035. It says 12-inch loop. So this is the one page the colored document that came out with the meeting notice. I was curious because at the water tower, it's showing red dots, which are 45 PSI. And then as you go down Pierce Road and down Kavanaugh Lake Road, the pressure seems to be increasing. That just looked odd.
It's a function of the elevation. It's at the tower sits at whatever it sits at, and if the ground is closer to that tower there, the elevation of the ground is higher above sea level, you're going to get a lower pressure based on that. Through a 12-inch pipe like that, there's very little friction loss during normal flows. So it's basically becomes a discussion of what's the elevation at the tower versus the elevation at the Westchester development.
But I mean, water doesn't usually flow from low pressure to high pressure. It's got to be a higher pressure at the tower in order to go.
Well, the difference between the elevation of the pipe and the elevation of the top of the tower is less. So there's less pressure measured in the pipes at that point in time. Because the tower is basically putting a hydraulic grade over the whole over the whole system, and so if I'll just make up some numbers, but if the tower is at 900 and the elevation at the base of the tower is 800, but the elevation at the of the ground at Westchester is 750, you're going to get a higher pressure at Westchester because that tower is controlling that overall.
And so there's a 12-inch main, correct, that runs to Westchester. And right now, phases 1 and 2 have been built with an 8-inch pipe.
That's our understanding, yes.
Okay. And then so we could go or a 12-inch could be connected at that point to that 8-inch, or is that
There was a separate 12-inch feed that was included with the plans, and that's where it would connect in.
Oh, so it wouldn't connect
On that same map that Kurt's looking at, it shows 2 feeds going into Westchester, which is appropriate. You want loop systems.
So this is the 8-inch system here.
Going through like phase 1 and 2.
Phase 1, 2. So that's already all built out. So I don't want to change anything there.
Right.
And
Then
then
the 12-inch.
12-inch comes back here.
Okay.
Yeah, the 12
Correct.
up to kind of phase 4. I mean, that was put in originally. The one along that old bypass. I mean, there was 52. There's a hydrant up in the middle of the cornfield. But if, you know, your urban. In your master plan, your urban boundary area almost looks like the water system should have been looped, or it should be looped. You know, I don't know, Ted, if you've seen the urban area, I mean, is there plans that would, you know, cause you have all your water to your south and the water to your north, and your urban area boundaries connects those two. Were those, should that have been looped? And if that was looped, would we have been upsizing all this pipe?
I don't know how to answer that question. We didn't analyze that. It's not looped, so we analyzed what was there.
You know, your urban, in your master plan, your urban district shows those connecting. You know, so if that.
Right, so it would provide greater operational flexibility is how I would describe it. It's got really nothing to do with pressures or flows. If something happens along Kavanaugh Lake Road and that line ruptures, we lose all of Westchester Farms, right?
Sure.
So it would be nice to have a looped system so that in the event that a failure occurred along Kavanaugh Lake Road, you could feed it in from a different direction.
No,
That would be a looped system. It
But
gives you-
I believe, and, you know, I don't know if that was a loop system, and maybe it's a different study, if that system was looped, would we be putting 12-inch mains in Westchester?
Yes.
If that system was looped, there would be a different pressure because you have two ways for the water to get to the system. So there'd be different flows and pressures. We did not model that. I don't know what the answer to your question is, Sean. But you'd have a different flow, you'd have a different pressure profile for sure.
Because most subdivisions we do like this, you know, we don't run 12 inches all looping through there. They're all
it's
unique.
It's much more likely that you're gonna have a water failure within your system. You've got all this construction, all this digging going on. It's much more likely that somebody's gonna hit a water line in your system than it is in our system down Pierce or Kavanaugh Road. That means your system should be looped so that, you know, the entire subdivision is out of water. And you do have a lot of valves and you have a lot of flexibility in there to do that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, like I said, I mean, that's normal practice to try to loop stuff, which would have been normal practice when they designed this whole system, instead of putting two giant dead end lines, is to loop it. And if it would have been looped, again, maybe they need to run the models on that. If it was looped and designed properly, we wouldn't be putting 12-inch mains throughout our whole project.
So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, we, the township, have hired engineers twice. And have told us that the 8-inch piping within their system is not acceptable. I think their engineer and our engineers ought to get together and figure out how to put a system in there that meets everybody's requirements. And we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of that. I think that'd be a great idea. It's been a long time, like you said, this is, though we've had, you know, reports saying this, reports saying that. So in the interest of, moving it forward and protecting the township, I think that would be a good idea for the engineers to
And then,
come together and.
Sean, the points that Sean made early on, those are interpretations of the consent judgment. And we as a board should close session with Rob Fall, go through those and see if we agree with what Sean is saying.
For the additional units, for the additional, and then the Chelsea, part as well.
Because, you know, that's what's, if we can identify the problem, that's always the first step, right? And that's where we are. We're at a disconnect here. We're saying our 12-inch line is good. They're saying, no, it's not. We're saying your 8-inch system's no good. And they're saying, yes, it is if you did. So.
And that's what I'm saying. We were gonna have this discussion whether whether we change the plans or not. That's why I wanted to make sure we separate these into three different.
And the only way we're gonna solve that is to get the engineering companies to sit down and discuss.
Find the best way, because we don't have a way, right?
Right, we're not
And
gonna
it's,
figure it out.
no.
Well, I think they did. I think they did that. Now it comes down to it. Maybe it's what the next part of that was, and I believe they did their studies, and then, you know, originally, again, it was gonna be a booster station, and the engineer sat down and came up with a alternative versus putting a booster station in. That were, again, that is out of normal engineering practices, so that's where the agree to disagree is, you know, what would normal engineering practices be versus what is designing a system to put a Band-Aid over a bad design originally. So maybe we have them run it, if this was looped like a normal system should have been, would you be sizing these pipes?
You really, well. The cost of us looping our system far outweighs any operational benefits. So we could model it,
Which is why we, hey, this is a good compromise here. Okay, to bring your system that should have been designed, should have been done properly, here is a way that we can overcome that without any dollars coming out of the township.
it's not, should have been done, it was done properly for the design standards we had at the time, it meets all those requirements. There's not, you can't say should have been done properly.
And it was also Eagle and DEQ approved at the time, just to point that out.
Yeah, good point. Because the water line leaving the water tower going the other direction over to all the other, well, that's a dead end system too, right? That's not loop.
Correct?
It provides greater operational flexibility. I always said you could loop a 12-inch line, but if you got a garden hose hooked up to it, you're trying to supply 300 volts, it doesn't work. And you know, we could study it. To me, you're gonna end up paying for it. I assume our trust and agency funds are up to date and. But I don't see the cost of installing such a system increasing. Getting all that right away and. You can see what it costs just to upgrade 8-inch to 12 it and you put in the ground yet, probably $600,000. Just to go from 8 to 12, can you imagine miles
And to be honest with you, the booster station's cheaper. Maybe we ought to go back, maybe we go back to the booster station, start, you know, we do that, because that's cheaper than.
Right, IMED report says the ongoing maintenance and operation of booster station would be an unnecessary burden on the township. So that's what I'm. There's no need for a booster station, and we don't need that unnecessary burden on the township.
So, like I said, there's three things that need to be discussed, and, you know, and you guys can discuss those in the closed session or not, but I believe they're three separate items, because, you know, the water issue, we're gonna have this regardless if we're changing claims now, and that was, you know, that was a conversation that was gonna be had.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of changing the other things. Again, bringing the extra units on, bringing the city in here, you know, seemed to be a mechanism that was win-win. You need users, this brings on more users. The tap fees that offset the upgrading the system to fit the pressure needs that are there. Again, without the township writing a check.
So as far as the Chelsea property, the Glens, where do we stand with it? Are we ready for the township to do
So
reviews on that?
So the township is reviewing, so, I don't know, did I show you guys the ones? No. So, just the, if you bring up the Chelsea, this is what's going on.
Well,
This is what we're,
the question is, has the township been,
yes, the township has been reviewing the Glenn's plans. Sue Dickinson.
okay, and are you aware of the requirements from the fire department?
Yes.
Capital?
Yeah, and they've done it, yeah.
Because, I have a letter from them saying that they have not been involved in any review meetings of this.
They've been involved in it.
And they have quite a few requirements in there, that the buildings be sprinkled and we're all.
Yes, we're in final, actually, we got final site plan approval from the city, so yes, all those items have been.
From the fire,
From the fire department.
not from the fire, what the fire department is telling me is that they have not been involved and they have not reviewed the.
I didn't bring the.
I didn't bring
through the city.
Well, let's see if they figure out.
Yeah, signed letter and we got his requirements and we're. I mean, no different than your board, you know, that, the city piece is not under the consent judgment, so that went through a regular zoning, a regular approval, regular goes to the planning commission, goes to the board. You get multiple letters there, that was all been done and taken care of. I believe we're in front of them in January, whatever the next day for final.
So how do you want to proceed on getting, the water piping issue addressed? Do you want to get Atwell and IMEG together to, come up with a model that works? Or are you hanging your hat on something else?
Guess I'm hanging my hat on something else.
Okay, so you're staying with your 8-inch system.
I'm saying there's, who's paying for the additional pipe?
If it has to be upgraded to 12-inch?
Right, it'd go from the 8 to the 12.
Well, the taxpayers already put $8 million into the developer system, so why would, I think they're kind of tired of paying for.
So that's what the additional tap,
So it's on
fees.
you, it's your,
so we'd be paying for it.
yes,
We'd be
that's my
paying for it,
opinion.
right, so we'd be paying for it in lieu of the extra taps.
Well, that's a whole different discussion.
That is what's in your packet, that's what's in your packet right now, that is what you're voting on, that is what it is, that is how it's laid out right now.
But in lieu of the tap, we, without tap. Because those money should go back into the town, just pay off the bond, so we are.
Yeah, I mean,
For your-
the tap fees go for capital improvements there, but if we take the city parcel out and go to the cities there, you'd have never got those 96.
We're fine with that. That would be much better for us.
Not to have more users on your system.
We're
would be
not
fine.
gonna grow our way out of this problem. We're not looking forward to growing our way out of this problem.
Well, and that's,
That's
you
my
know,
opinion.
that's, you know, I know that people have that opinion and I have heard that out there. I think more users are gonna behoove us. We have already heard from the phase 1 and 2 people at Westchester who are really unhappy about the amount of their bills and the rates they're paying. So if we can have more users, which our system was built for and designed for, that would help lower those. Now, I'm not saying because of that, we should pony up any dough. I'm just saying that greater number of users will help the Sylvan residents who are also paying a lot of money for rates and also paying the 4.4, but at
Right.
least they're getting the
So,
benefit.
For water, that's great, but you know what?
Right.
For sewer, if Leone's not willing to take it, then how you gonna address it?
Well, and that's a separate issue that we are gonna be needing to meet in January. You know, we do have a contract as far as, you know, not to get too far in the weeds, but we do have a contract with Leone to receive a certain amount of sewer flow. And I understand from Bob, you know, Skull and Mike Joseph before him that we are sending a fraction of our contractually obligated flow to them. They could even cut our flow in half and we would still have way more than we need. So I think there's not necessarily maybe a concern that it's gonna be too much flow, but, you know, there's a separate problem of Leone and their consent order and, building out their plant and those
And
types of
Norfolk's been
things.
extremely patient on that sewer, so we haven't even got into that sewer discussion, you know, but, and that one can get a lot uglier than the water one.
Yeah.
We've been extremely patient, we've worked in my opinion, very good faith with the township to try to solve a lot of issues.
Right. And we appreciate that. You know, we're partners in this. We're trying to make sure
I
you
agree.
guys can go do what you wanna do. Our job is to protect the taxpayer while we do it, right? That's our job.
Yep.
Right. And like I say, the taxpayer has already funded, you know, 8 million of what's developer water and sewer system, that the taxpayers pay.
But we paid the tap fees, didn't we? We paid tap fees for those.
Yeah, but not to cover the costs of the system. The 4.4 mils that the residents.
I hear you there, but
All that infrastructure.
I hear you there.
Seems
but
like it's still not enough. We gotta-
I'm not gonna disagree with that.
In the original consent judgment, 2010, number 18, it's utility systems within the property boundaries. It states the plaintiff shall be responsible for all costs associated with the design, engineering, construction, and testing of the sewer and water lines on the property constructed from the public sewer and water lines described in paragraph 7. Above necessary to serve the project. So even in the original consent judgment, it
It was, it's, do we have enough service at the street to hook into? Is it, are you providing enough pressure
Yeah.
for us to do that?
It sounds like it would be to approve it, which will put in. We felt that it was, it met the design.
So I mean, there's what we're gonna agree to do, but you're right, I mean, it's us paying that, but it's, you know, we contracted whatever, 300 and some type, you know, the special assessment district. Did you give us what we paid for? Which is the question, you know.
And has been questioned.
And has been a question like,
Correct, we brought the 12-inch pipe, we're saying that's sufficient for your system, and you're saying.
you
yeah,
special
something like
assessment for that? Did-
Right,
Did you provide us what we paid for? Is the question. I wanna make sure, those are separate than the other issues.
So we're not gonna have engineering companies sit down together and redesign your system.
I
I'm not
don't-
hearing that
I don't
that's
know what they'll do any different than they've already
the
done.
solution.
I don't know what they, I mean, literally, the system is designed to do that to pay for it. So I don't know, having them sit down and design something, it's been,
Why wouldn't you go to Atwell and say, hey, there are pressure issues here with the system you designed, you got a 12-inch main. You have to meet whatever that 12-inch main provides, we have to be able to make it work.
That's what we did. I was involved in that part of it. Again, I'm not an engineer, but it's been a long time. So we've done that. Again, it comes down to the question of, we do not believe that Norfolk paid for a system through the tap fees. That 12-inch line, if you were at the end of this in a reasonably designed system, we're disagreeing on the engineering point only, that you're supplying enough volume and pressure that if that design was designed correctly, knowing this, that you should have a system that would have provided it, that would run an 8-inch all the way through there.
Okay, so what's the process for fixing this?
What we have,
Oh,
that's where we're disagreeing. We've agreed pretty much with everything everybody said, other than who pays for that.
who's gonna pay for the increase in the line size?
That is correct.
so it's not, you know, when I hear people say, you know, we're gonna pay for all the infrastructure, that, you know, we're talking just the increase of the
Right,
pipe
we're
size.
paying for all that. It's the increase. We do not feel, the engineers do not feel that we were supplied with an adequate pressure and volume. If you looked at that system all laid out, that's the only question. The rest of it, we sure don't disagree with. That's the only thing. I think everybody did a good job, and your engineers and your consultants were involved, so I don't think we can look at it, it's just who pays for it. The upside, rest of it. We worked like 3 iterations to get the cost down, to get everything the best we could.
So are you thinking that the 12-inch main should have been a 14-inch main?
Or it should have been looped, or you had a 16-inch, normally they're not 14, 16, but yeah.
I think it's interesting, and maybe, so there was an 8-inch pipe there and a 12-inch pipe there.
We put the 8-inch.
Oh,
So
okay,
the 12-inch came down, and then
Right.
you remember where that old bypass? So it came down, and essentially, when you bring back some names that probably, you know, so that when there was the Hamel parcel and the Papel parcel,
Mhm.
so the Hamel parcel was the parcel to the north. We bought phase 1 and 2 essentially from Renee Papel, and Warren Hamel had the farm that was above it. So the water and sewer ran up to Warren's property. It was kind of in the middle of a cornfield. So when we did phase 1 and 2, we didn't technically even tie into the end of the line. We tied in somewhat, I won't say midpoint, but we tapped into the 12-inch and ran an 8 up to phase 1 and 2. And then that eventually would have looped into, you know, the 12 that was already up there. They would have all looped in together. Same as the sanitary runs in, you know, part way, and then there's a manhole that's up again, the middle of cornfield up there that was at Hamels piece, so we'll tie into that manhole in these future phases.
Okay, so it's not as though there was a 12-inch there, but you chose to put in an 8-inch, or you're, cause I'm just feeling like I.
No, so again, a normal, you know, again, you've got a 12 that came up here. The first phase is, again, normal engineering, you have an 8-inch, you know, you run a subdivision off. You know,
So
8
phase,
inch.
phase 1 and 2, the 8-inch
Right,
supplied
what-
was a fine job.
right.
The 12-inch was run additionally for all the additional.
Yeah,
phases.
so
Well, I suppose it's just the timing, because I'm thinking, if you knew it was a 10-phase project, and why would you go with the 8-inch for the couple, if you're building this system off of there, but I'm.
And some of that didn't come out until 2017, you know, where it was up there, and again, even in the modeling, there's some 8, but they've got an awful lot of 12. Doing all sorts of kind of crazy things in an engineering world that you normally would not do. But again, we knew we were gonna have this conversation sooner or later. Unfortunately, you know, we thought maybe it was bad. We thought it'd be easier just to handle them all together. Maybe we should have separated the two. You know, cause we had this plan done, the layout stuff done, gosh, 8 months ago, you know. Hindsight, should have came in and did the, you know, the modification and adding the, Chelsea piece separate, and then came back and dealt with the water separately, maybe. And we can even do that still, and we can, you know, if you take that section out of this consent judgment, you know, we're still gonna have this conversation. So, but we thought, out of, again, we're all working with all the engineers and consultants, let's just tackle everything at once. And do it. So, you know, maybe we separate them, maybe we don't, but that was the reason
It
why.
clouds it clouds the problem, you know,
I agree with
fix
this.
one thing at a time
I,
and not throw it all in one big pot.
which
Start
is,
trading.
yes, which is why I wanted to kind of, hey, let's start out and separate this into, you know.
Alright, some are technical issues, some are legal, you know.
Right, so 1 and 2, you know, are just straight, you know, we're modifying the plan, and then 1, you know, we'd always contemplated, you know, bringing the city piece in, you know. Then the third one is, you're absolutely right, that's the technical, that's and that's the one that's kind of the biggest concern. And that has to be addressed again, whether we bring the city in or not, whether we add 31 units or not. The third thing of the water pressure is an issue regardless of how we look at this.
So have you, shared any of these, infrastructure alternative IMEG engineering reports with Atwell?
They've worked very closely together through this whole process.
Does Atwell agree? Yep, these isn't gonna work, here, these pressures as designed, this does not work.
They're in agreement with your consultant's reports. I mean, they agree.
Okay, they agreed as designed, it doesn't work.
Well, it doesn't meet the criteria here. The
And the solutions they've come up with are,
most cost effective. I've been involved. We did 3 iterations to get the lineal feet of pipe down and to work the best they can. They modeled it. I think we had 2 models. I think the first one, they decided they just did some internal stuff, and then the other ones we had to, so we got to this one. First one didn't work quite right, and the second one did. With the changes.
But again, these are trying to find solutions to a problem that shouldn't exist.
the problem you created.
We bought 330 taps in a special assessment district, and there's where we'll agree to disagree. Did you give us the service that we paid for?
That 12-inch line was there before you started the design of your system and was approved by the state of Michigan, so you've done things right on your side, wouldn't be talking about this. What about sewer review? Have we done any engineering reviews on the sewer system? I don't think IMEG does that. I don't think Midwest does that.
Midwest.
Midwest was in there, yeah.
Midwest reviews all the stormwater, the sewer,
That's all,
water, that's all.
that's reiteration. It's all.
We've got permits sitting at DQ for, what, the last year and a half? So, I mean, we got our phase 3 in the old section has been sitting delayed at the DQ for a year and a half. So like I said, that can be a whole nother discussion we can get into.
All right, well, it sounds like what I'm hearing is we should have a special meeting with Rob Fall, to discuss items 1 and 2, which are the additional units. And then our third item, the big one, being the water system. And are we at an impasse, or are we finding a way forward right now at this
I'm
point?
thinking that we're at an impasse, and so we're gonna have to draft some kind of letter saying, your design has not passed our engineering reviews. And we wanna see, your proposed solutions and see what they come up with, and then, it sounds like what they're gonna come up with is something that's not gonna be acceptable to us. They're gonna say you should move your system more, you should increase it to 16-inch, and we're gonna say, no, we're not gonna do that. There's the basis for the lawsuit.
So what I would propose doing is a written legal opinion so that we can go into closed session. And I think I need to address all 3 issues, the legality of all 3 of those issues. But, and then we would go into a closed session, discuss them.
Sounds good.
I mean, we can still do, I think what Kurt's proposing, giving them official notification is fine.
Mhm.
But obviously, I want to advise you on all 3 of those issues.
I agree. Before we do any sort of notice, talk to you first, or do that, and move forward on
Well, I think we could do that, but I think that we need to just go over the whole thing,
Yeah. Do
from a
that.
legal standpoint.
Right.
You want a closed session now?
So it has to be, we can only do a closed session on, I'd have to do a written legal opinion to go into closed session on it. So, I mean, that's gonna have to be, into the beginning, maybe the first week of January. I know, what's the date of your first meeting?
It's the second Tuesday in January, because
So the 10th?
I think so. I don't have my calendar with me, but yeah, that's the second.
I mean, or would it be better if we picked a different day so that it's, we can take the time we need to talk about it?
I like that better. Sometimes the board meetings are long already, and there's a lot of things, I think, on our January agenda coming up. We have a presentation, so I would prefer to do it at a different time than our regular meeting.
All right, so we'll coordinate, I'll coordinate with Kathy and she can coordinate with the board a different date.
And you'll get us a memo so we could go into closed session. Okay. Very good. Good discussion. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, board, for your thoughtful comments. And Ted Erickson, thank you also for being here today and helping us understand a little bit your reports and the engineering behind that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So at this point, there's no items that we're going to be deciding, it sounds like, under this unfinished business. So I'm going to move to table this item for a closed session. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. All right, we have a couple other items on our agenda real quick. Today. So So just a couple kind of house cleaning items, we needed to change the board of trustee when we did the, notice of meetings for next year. Amanda pointed out that the November meeting could be on an election day. So we're going to, I move we change the November 7, 2023 meeting to November 14th, 2023 due to a conflict with potential election day.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Thank you. The other item was that we, a couple months ago, when we did our credit card resolution, it required a roll call vote on the resolution. And I didn't realize that and just sort of did an up and down vote on that. And I believe it was unanimous, that everyone supported it. So I will move that we approve the credit card resolution 2209. Well, we've already done this once, we'll just formalize it. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, motion by Kathy, supported by Amanda to support the credit card use resolution. So we will do a roll call vote this time. Trustee Schulze? Yes. Treasurer Branham?
Yes.
Supervisor Kennedy, yes. Clerk Nimke? Yes. Yes. Trustee Posey?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. That's the end of the business portion. We're at the public comment. Anyone have public comment at this time? All right, board of trustee member comments? All right. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Motion by Rod, supported by Kurt. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. All right, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Oh, thank you. Wow. Yeah, they're huge. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me for the copies. Also, for January,
Jim, I've seen you around. Yeah. Well, I've worked mostly about, I had my own company for 30. I did Lamar.
All right.
So he's
Again.
I'm like, I do, it's part of our development, so when he kind of pulls down, we used to do work a lot together when we were all full, and I would sell a lot of land. I do this part,
Well,
He's
I feel
come
terrible.
close the doors of Peter's.
Today that the agenda that he said 7. I didn't even realize that. They got- Well, I
I
think
did
that
last night and I highlighted every time.
Yeah, thank you. I think technically the notice was okay. So we're okay. So we're okay for it, but I was like, oh, I signed. Oh. Okay, cool. It's 9:30.
This is quite is that power play drawing issue for as built, we have this whole process to go through. So it's really different.
So you already paid for it? Well, then just submit it.
We got a lot more
And we have a little
process.
You fill out, or you fill it out and then she'll sign it off, sign it, it's like approved and, but yeah, this should probably be one of the last times.
Anywhere near that's.
Yeah, well, if you want to sign up, you need to contact, you have your item.
Engineering. Yeah.
So we won't have to.
Plan. And this, is a lot of plans and there's a lot of opinions, a lot of give and take to get it done. Not as bad as building nuclear. No. I see the kind open that one. Yeah, no, Carol say it's on. It's solar, it's wind, it's not. No, it's so like I said, nuclear fusion there. Yeah. How long? So we look now, that's 1930. Not really, but maybe not my lifetime. The grandkids that would power everything.
Well, then they just said that, I think it was yesterday, the Wright brothers took their first flight 100 years ago or something, and but look how far we've come in 100 years. Right. Maybe the fusion, 100 years from now.
Like I said, you can do everything will change there. Sounds a lot safer than, the current nuclear. Well, you don't have to waste.
Well, there never has been a process that created more energy than it consumes, so they're really going against the.
That's some of
anything we've ever known, so.
Most of what we were taught, that's.
Right, so I don't have high hopes on you.
When, are you guys getting much of wind and solar out here? Yeah.
No, not in, down so.
We're doing some stuff over in Marshall.
No, it's going big there.
The solar farms over there, and all on 94. I think they're putting 4,000 acres worth of.
Down in York and Saline and all that, because my parents have pipe in line and they've been trying to lease their farm. Last time, so, it sounds good, but boy, there's a lot of, I haven't sent it, so. But,
But, then you get up north, and you see, Bay City, and north, which Midlands is kind of go up, cut across it. And we put another 128 windmills up in that farm.
Isn't that crazy?
Okay, as far as you can see, right, and drive through, you got some friends that live on a farm that have them behind them, and stuff. In Colorado, you used to be able to go out at night and kind of hear the birds and crickets and stuff like you might do here. So just,
Yeah. The consumers, we call it porcupine look,
yeah, you get up there, there's no light, so all the red lights blink simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, I think they had to do that because if they went off at separate, it would look crazy.
Yeah, if you were from the, and from the air, you could never.
Figure out where it is. They're building 130.
Yeah, and the concrete that they pour for those.
Isn't that something?
I mean, it's as big as this room, the pad that piece is on.
I didn't realize how much concrete they need in these pads or.
Like I said, we would drive up there and, we'd watch them all put together and like even the roads, they'd have to go those temporary turns around all the roads because they can't get the semi trucks.
Yeah.
Make those sharp turns there. When they first doing it, we're doing out here doing all these gravel pull-offs and stuff there, and all of a sudden we started building them. And
Yeah, the farmers got paid nicely for that, put all those roads in.
and for them, I guess it's still a firm field. It's the income source.
Germany's going back to burning more coal. Everything is always opposite of what you're.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to do this, especially around this time of year, it's tough to get.
I agree, I appreciate, we'll agree to disagree on some things, but, I appreciate the conversation.
I think it always works best to, let people know where you're coming from. And like I said, really define the problem and then define where you have agreement.
And like I said, and we debated, to be honest with you, on, do we even tackle this water problem, now, or do we just keep it separate and, hey, let's do the other part first and then we'll come back and tackle the water. Like I said, with the one landed on tails, we should have been heads, and we should have done it that way instead of plowing up the other, but you're right, because it kind of clouds.
Right, well, I tried to push it back when I was supervisor, but I, kept being told here about people here, don't worry about it. It's all I'm not worried about it.
But the water pressure problem, I mean, in a sense, they were right from that standpoint. There's the water issue was there regardless if we were changing it or not. And that was always, there was always an issue with it. Again, for the first one identified, it was on the old system, so there was always that issue. And it was either, how do we handle it? Should we have come and had the discussions in 2017?
Groups, we kind of, when we set through, when we tried to solve a lot of the things that you're bringing up. Discussion, we've been through a lot of stuff, what I looked at is a year.
Yeah, and probably not have the council, they don't want to pay more money, okay, well, we're bringing all these. We're bringing all these taps in mind, can we offset that cost with that? And honestly, it's a financial burden for us because, you know, we're paying for all that to go in, and we don't get the benefits we build a house. So all our carry costs, all our upgrade costs, I mean, it's actually more of a burden on us, but it kind of be. You know. So we had a couple of configurations.
Get it down to minimal possible.
Right, so, oh,